Hey everyone, it's me, Rami Marks, your Tangled Yogi out here in Northern California. Welcome to the Aura Cat Zentangle Inspired class. I'm going to be teaching this for the Napa Public Library, and so I thought I would share it with you as well. So let's talk about the things that we're going to need for class. I'm going to be working with my Pigma pen. This is the same as a Micron PN pen. I also have my Mizu Love White Gel Pen, but you can use the Sakura 10 or 8. I'll be working with a graphite pencil and a tortillon. If you don't have a blending stump, you can always just grab a Q-tip out of the bathroom and that will work just fine. I will be using the Genesis tile from the Tangled Yogi shop. These tiles are 4.5 inches by 4.5 inches, super smooth and great for working with color pencil. You can pick those up at the Tangled Yogi shop at tangledyogi.com. You know me, I'm a Prismacolor girl, so grab your Prismacolor pencils. If you don't have Prismacolors, don't worry about it. Just grab whatever color pencils you have handy and play along with us. We're going to have a good time with this one. So with that said, let's get started with the Aura Cat. So here we go. We're going to start the regular old-fashioned Zentangle way. You can see that I've got my pencil in my hand here, and all I'm going to do is start by bringing my dots into my corners here. We're going to start to build a frame for our piece, and I'm going to go ahead and connect my dots just with a very gentle, soft line. And you can see that I'm really taking my time. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just taking your time and enjoying what you're doing. So I'm just moving the tile and connecting the dots just like so. Now once I have the dots where I want them and my lines where I want them, we're going to start to build our string into the piece here. So I'm going to look for the center of each of my lines, and you're going to see me make a dot, and I'm going to try to make those line up as much as I can. Once I have that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and connect the dots here by creating these triangle-like shapes all the way around the piece. And here you can see I've got this really nice diamond shape right in the center of my piece. So go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then when we come back, we're going to start to put a tangle inside the center. I want to bring an internal aura into the center of the piece here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a nice narrow aura just by adding some dots into the piece here. And then I'm going to aura on the inside, making a nice narrow frame here. So you can see that I'm still using my pencil just like so, and developing that nice narrow frame in the center. And this is really going to hold the tangle that we're going to do inside of it. Our first tangle that we're going to do today is called Lacrima, and what we're going to do is we're going to start by having a little square in which to work in. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take my pencil and find the midpoint of the piece here. I'll pick up my pen, and we're going to start with a really nice little diamond in here. Once I've got my diamond in there, I'm going to let the diamond extend out close to the borders. So I've got my diamond extending out towards the borders here. The next step that I'm going to do is I'm going to come from this point down to the midpoint of this little line. So all it's going to look like is that. Okay? I'm going to turn the tile clockwise here, and I'm going to do it again. Turning the tile clockwise and going to the midpoint of the next line. I'm going to continue to turn my tile here. And you can see it's a little oblong, but that's okay. So that's the first step of Lacrima. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to work on the outside edges just a little bit. I'm going to come to this point right here, and I'm going to start to build out again. And so it'll look a little something like this. Turning the tile and coming to the outside edge. Turning the tile, outside edge. Last time. So that you now have this really beautiful diamond-like shape that has a lot of dimension to it. Inside of these outer pieces, we're going to do something that kind of looks like a staircase. So all I'm doing is just coming out and stepping down like a staircase. And you can see that that's building these little odd shapes. Those are called interstices, and all we're going to do is pull them in. And that brings a really nice dimension into the piece. Turning the tile, stepping it down. Pull in those little shapes and then turn it. Here we go. Turn the tile. Here we go. And all we're doing is just pulling those in. And what it does is it gives a little bit of dimension to the piece. Now, we are going to build a little bit more onto this, so if you need to pause me here, this is a great place to do it. Otherwise, just keep following along with me. I'm going to create another frame in here. So all I'm going to do is just come in and create a frame. To build a little bit more dimension into the piece, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to make a triangular shape with this one line. So all I'm going to do is come from this point right here, and I'm going to step it out just a little bit. See how now there's a triangle in there? I'm going to turn my tile and do it all over again. So here I am right here, and all I'm going to do is just step it out so that it looks like a triangle. Notice how I connected here. I probably should have connected over there as well, but that's okay. Here's my next line. Step it out. And one more time here, coming back around. This is the last line right here. I'm going to try to connect it with this one, so that when I come back around, we've got these really cool triangles. I'm going to take a little bit of pencil and shade in those triangles, and you'll see that it really brings nice dimension into the piece. Isn't that so cool? So let me go ahead and zoom out, and that is Lacrima. So let's bring it into our particular composition today. So instead of doing a small diamond in the middle, we're going to have a little bit of a thicker diamond in ours. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make another aura again. This one is going to come out, I'm going to say about an inch away from the corners here. So I'm really trying to develop a nice feeling like a frame in there. So I'll just go ahead and I'll create a new frame. just like so. So go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then when we come back, we're going to put the tangle in there. So once we have that, what we're going to do is we're going to start to build that tangle of Lacrima inside of this piece that we have here. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to start to connect my corners. Just like so. Once I've got my corners connected, I'm going to start from the top here. See how I'm at this point? And I'm going to come right to the midpoint down here. You can see I've made a little dot there. So let's go ahead and connect those two together. I'm going to turn my tile clockwise here, and I'm going to do that all over again, putting a dot in the midpoint, coming from this point, and just making a line that connects it. Turning my tile clockwise, coming from this point to the midpoint, and connect it. Turn your tile one more time, coming from this point to this point, and connect it. So now we've got this really beautiful tangle that's really getting started here. It's quite lovely. Once we have that, what we're going to do is we're going to start to build our frame around the internal diamond here. So what this is going to look like is a nice narrow frame for the piece. So once I have that, I'm going to switch out into my pen here. And the reason for this is because I really want it to be clear what we're doing. So I'm going to start just the way we began by doing an overdraw. Once I have that, I'm going to connect the corners. Now, the reason why I love to do an overdraw is because it gives you the opportunity to learn a tangle and really get it. Sometimes with tangles, it can be a little bit hard to learn them, and so I like to have an opportunity to try again. So I'm going to come out to my outside edges, and I'm going to clean them up. And now what I'm going to do is those lines that come down from the corner to the middle. And you can see there's a little wiggle and wobble in my line. It's not perfect, but that's just fine. Now I'm going to pause right here, and I'm going to start to do those staircases that we had talked about here. So all it is just coming in and creating a staircase effect inside of Lacrima. And you see that I'm just getting in there. I'm going to pull my ink, just like so. Really just take your time with it. There's no rush. I'm going to turn my tile, and here we go again, right in here. Just like a little staircase coming down. You can see that it's just touching the outside edge every time. Pull your ink. You got it. So you can see all I'm going to do is just keep turning my tile and doing the same thing in these two. So we've got two more to go. You go ahead and finish up yours. I'm going to finish up mine. So once I've got that, I'm going to come back in and I'm going to clean up my frame around the piece here. So there's my frame around the piece. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do those little triangulated lines, and that's going to give this a really cool feel. So I'm going to come from this line and just make a little dot about, I'm going to say right here. You can see how it's lining up right there. And all I'm doing is creating a new triangle. See how it looks like an elongated triangle in there? I'm going to turn my tile and I'm going to do it again. Here's the point where I want to land, and I'm just going to go ahead and start to make this elongated triangle in here. Turning my tile, here's the point where I want to land, coming from this point right here and letting it roll right out. Last one right here, coming in, here's the point, here's the next point. We're taking off and landing. Now normally I wouldn't add colors so early into this piece, but I feel like it just helps us to see the tangle a little bit better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up just a little bit of purple. This is Parma Purple, PC1008, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm just going to dust a little bit of Parma Purple right in that triangle on one side and the other. And you can see that it's already defining the space a little bit. Turning my tile clockwise here. Not this one, this one. So just giving it a little dusting so that you can see the tangle itself. I think this one is kind of a brain bender. So I'm just going to come in and continue to add a little dusting. And one more time. You can see I'm going fairly light with that pencil, and we'll come back and do some more with that coloring a little bit later. So basically we have Lacrima right here, and I think it's a really pretty tangle, and I hope you do too. Our next tangle is one that I fell in love with a couple of weeks ago. I absolutely love it. This is called Bilboa, and this is by Ignacio Ruiz Gutierrez, and I love this particular tangle. So we're going to do a fragment of it, and then we'll get into it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come into the center of this box that we have here, and I'm going to make a circle. Now the way that she teaches it is she comes into the area where the circle is and she makes 4 points. And then she does a crescent moon to each point. And I'm really trying to make these about the same size. Once we have those, what I want you to think of is taking this and making it feel as though there was a box in each corner. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and start to make a box that's going to hit the midsection, and it's going to hit the midsection here. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So a line that's going to hit the midsection, and then it's going to hit the midsection over here. So you can see I've got these two boxes and this kind of awkward box in the middle. I'm going to do it again. So I'm going to put a point at the midsection, and I'm going to make a box that goes through and it goes down. Same thing over here, just one little dot, and all we're doing is making a box so that you end up with kind of a plus sign around your flower here. Once we have that, we're going to do some aura-ing, and the aura-ing is what really makes this tangle come alive. So I'm just going to go ahead and start by coming into this box right here. I'm going to do an aura of all of the shape that we have here. See how I really focused on having that roundedness? That's very important here. So I'm going to go ahead and come down and around, let this one drop in, get this kind of funky little shape in the middle. Super cool. And then I'm going to work my way around over here, coming around in here. Now this one, I don't really have very much to aura in there, so I'm just exaggerating that kind of roundedness. And you'll notice that when you do that, it starts to create like a secondary outline around that flower, which I love. Same thing over here. I'm just going to play with it a little bit. And same thing in here. Now for me, what took this tangle to the next level and made it really interesting, I thought, was to put vertical lines in throughout the piece. So all I'm going to do is create these vertical lines. And we'll be doing this as wallpaper in our piece. And for those of you who are new and have not done wallpaper with me before, when we get to doing color, we will do the tangling in the color that we're coloring with, and that is the technique of wallpaper. But just for you to see how cool this tangle is, I just wanted you to get the idea with the lines here. And I'm just kind of quickly running through. Isn't that such a fun tangle? I love this, and it's really great when we get to shade it. So let's bring this into the piece. Now we'll get a little bit tricky because we're not working in squares, we're working in triangles. So the way that I'm going to do it is I'm going to come to each square here, and I'm going to define the space a little bit. So the way that I'm going to bring this tangle into the piece is I'm going to start by picking up my little pencil here, my little graphite pencil, and I'm going to start to create a little way for me to think of this as a full box, because you would imagine that there's a full box in here, right? So let's zoom into that. And I'm going to come to the center, and I'm going to drop down. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a little bit of a line here. And that's what's going to make this feel a little bit easier to do, because we are kind of taking it from one thing and turning it into another. So remember how I started with that little dot in the center the first time? All I'm going to do is I'm going to pretend like I'm making a circle, but I have to stop. If I was continuing, I would go all the way around in here, right? Now once I've got that in there, that's my guide. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick up my pen, and I'm going to aura that in, or I'm going to overdraw it. And then once again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this an aura. Now that I have that, I'm going to put my dots in each of those little areas right there. I'm going to come in and I'm going to make a crescent moon here, and I'm going to make a crescent moon here, but I have to stop. Crescent moon over here, and then of course you won't be able to see the other side, right? Now, once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come to the middle of this point right here, and I'm going to pretend like I'm making a box. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and 1, and then I'm going to come out here 2, just like so. Over here, here's the midpoint, coming out, and that's going to just be left alone. Same thing over here, pretending like I'm making a box here. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring this out. I would have come down, but there's no place to go down to. So you have these two channels that you're creating here. Once I've got those, you can see that I've got these kind of funky little spaces in which to work in, right? So all I'm going to do is start to aura. Coming over here. And you can already see that this tangle is starting to come to life in those corners. I just love this tangle. I think it's super, super fun. So there's this corner. Let's go ahead and come to the next corner. So all I'm going to do is shift. You can see that I've got my graphite pencil in my hand here, and I'm just going to find the midpoint here. And imagine that there was a box there, right? And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to block it off. Once I have that, I'm thinking about how big I made the last one, and I'm going to do the same thing over here. So all I'm doing is making a circle and then making an arc. Once I have that, I'm going to pick back up my pen and round it off. And I neglected to block off that triangle, so let's go ahead and block that off. And once I have that, now I can start to build my points. All I'm going to do is create that nice crescent moon here. I'm going to do another crescent moon over here, but I have to stop. And then I'll do another crescent moon right here. Once I have that, I can start to build this out a little bit. Let's call it just building channels. So I'm just going to make 2 dots, let them come up and out, and once again up and out. Okay? Now we've got those funky little blocks to work in. We can start doing our aura. Remember, we're trying to keep it as close to the shape as we possibly can. Take your time in each of these. Super, super fun. Coming in, really getting in that arch. Coming in over here. One more time. Look at how cool that is. Isn't that fun? I just love that tangle so much. So I'm just going to flip it. And here we go again. So let's come over to this triangle right here. And then we're going to pick up our pencil, thinking of the box here, coming in, find that midpoint, just like so. Once again, figuring out where our circle would be. There's the midpoint. So all I'm doing is creating that arch, and then once again coming out and making the aura. Once I've got my arch and my aura, I can go in and start to create. I'm going to go ahead and find that point here and find that point here, create my crescent moon. Here comes another crescent moon. It's going to hit. This one's going to hit too. Once I've got that, I'm going to start to create those channels again. So here's my 2 dots, creating the channels. We're going to go over here, create those 2 channels. And then we're going to come in and we're going to aura. Taking your time. Last one right here. We're going to go ahead and finish it off. Go ahead and come over here, finish this one off. And once again, coming in with your pencil, find the midpoint. That one's a little bit off, so I might just raise it up a little bit. Once I've got it, I'm going to go ahead and start to create my arches. And then find the midpoint like so. So let's come in, create those arches. And then once again, find your point, arcing. That one's going to touch, and that one's going to touch. Coming in, let's build the channels. So all we're doing is just one channel over here, one channel over here, and then we can come in and start to do our auras. I love the repetition of this tangle. And that is Bilboa. So fun. Look at how cool those two tangles go together. One of my new favorite things. So go ahead and do yours. I'm going to do mine, and then when we come back, we're going to bring in our guest of honor. So let's go ahead and bring in the cat here. You can see that I've got my graphite pencil in my hand, and all I'm going to do is just create a little bit of a guideline for myself to build where the cat is going to go. So you can see that I've got my area ready to go, and I'm going to come in just a little bit above the midline here, and I'm going to make a little bit of a dot there. And I'm going to extend the dot out just a little bit, about 1/4 of an inch, so not a lot. And I want you to think of a teardrop shape. All I'm going to do is bring this little teardrop shape down on either side as if that teardrop was going to continue underneath. Okay? The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the piece, and I'm going to put almost like an oval-like shape on top of that teardrop. Once I've got that oval type shape on the teardrop, I'm going to do 2 triangles on either side. Once I've got the 2 triangles on either side, I'm going to do the Tangle Printemps, and all I'm going to do is come up, over, and create this kind of spiral-like shape in here, and then I'll go outward and bring it down and in. So let's bring in our pens here, and all we're going to do is trace the outside edge. So it's going to look a little something like this. I'm going to start with one little triangle going around, and I'm going to soften that edge in here just a little bit. Bringing in the body, going over to the other side, rounding, softening it out, So now we have the outside edge of the cat, and then I'll go ahead and I'll bring in his little tail. Now, if you want to make your cat a little bit more robust, you can bring a little bit more girth into the side there, and that'll make it a little bit more interesting. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to pick up my Identi pen. I love this pen because it's great for pooling ink, and I'm going to start to build in my cat. I love doing the silhouette of animals. For me, there's just something very romantic about it. And the other thing is, when you're working with these type of pens, you want to work in little circles. You can see that I'm getting a really nice fill in into the space. And then I'll start to build his tail. Just like so. Now, if you want to give him a little bit larger ears, you can go ahead and just come in and give him some larger ears, just to make him a little bit more interesting just by playing with it. Now, I'm not going to add his whiskers until the very end. The reason for that is that I really want them to go right over the color and not get lost. So I will be waiting to put in his whiskers. Okay? So let's come back in a couple minutes and we're going to start to do some shading and color. So I've got my gummy eraser here, and I'm going to take out my strings that I've been using throughout the piece here, because I just want to make sure that our color doesn't have anything impeding it. So you can see that I'm just going around and removing any of the strings from this. So some people call this a kneaded eraser, some people call it a gummy eraser. It's just one of these really fabulous erasers that you can get from the store. I like the Faber-Castell one, and the reason why I like these is because they're self-cleaning. The more you play with them, the more they clean up, so they're really wonderful. So you can pick one of those up for, I think, like $2, and they're just fantastic because they don't make a mess around your workspace. So let's go ahead and zoom in on the center of where this piece is. And we're going to come back to those purple areas that we started with. Remember that Parma purple, which is PC100008? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to give this just a little bit more heaviness right on the outside edge with that Parma purple. Now, I'm going to play with this just a little bit here by adding in a little bit of white to move that pigment around. Many of you know that I love working with the white pencil. This is PC938. Remember, if you don't have the same colors as me, what I'm really looking for is just a really nice pale purple and your white color pencil that came in your color pencil set. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to start in the center here and just start to manipulate that lighter color around a little bit. And then I'll dive backwards into where that heavier pigment is. So you're going to see me do little circles with this to move that color around, and then I'll dip back into where it's a little bit heavier. Doing this kind of helps you with the paper as well, so that if there's any kind of toothiness to the paper, you can kind of soften it out a little bit, which is what I like to do. And I find that the white pencil is really, really good at moving the pigment around and getting it to soften up so that it doesn't look so rough. Now once I've got that, I'm going to pick up a little bit of my graphite pencil and I'm going to add it into the points here. Now the reason why I'm working with graphite and not a darker pencil is because the graphite kind of gives this almost a metallic feel, and I'm looking for something that's a little bit more slatey. I'm not trying to be too vibrant here. I'm really trying to get it to be more metallic. Once I've got that in there, I'm going to pick back up that white pencil and I'm going to start to smear around that graphite. And the reason why I like to use the white pencil with the graphite is it seals the color and it seals the graphite so that the graphite won't move. And for those of us who end up wearing stuff on the side of our hand here, this is a really great trick to stop yourself from wearing graphite. And I really love the way that that looks. I hope you do too. So go ahead and play, get it just the way that you want it, and then when we come back, we're going to add a little bit more to this piece. So let's take that Parma purple and we're going to start to bring it into the little staircases that we had. So all I'm going to do is start to dust that in. Get a really nice light feeling, and you'll notice that I'm leaving the tops of the staircases nice and light. I'm going to turn my tile and do it again. So I'm going very, very lightly with that Parma purple. You'll also notice that I'm, getting in and getting out. I'm not being overly precious with it. We're really just laying a foundation of color into these areas. Turning the tile. Once I have that, I'm going to come back in and I'm going to be a little bit heavier handed right along the black line. I'm just going to focus on these two just for the sake of keeping the video shorter. Once I've got that, I'm going to pick back up my white pencil and I'm going to start to blur my lines a little bit. You can see that I'm rolling down each one of these and really trying to get this kind of softened feel, a little bit blurry, a little bit spooky. I'll come over here and I'll do the same thing. So I'm softening it up, blurring it out a little bit, and you can see that that brings a ton of definition into this tangle. I really enjoy this tangle for the shading of it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to finish up these two over here. You go ahead and do yours. So you can see once I've got that like that, I'm going to come back in with a little bit of that graphite and I'm going to start to bring it along the edge there. This is going to bring a little bit of drama into these pieces, and then I'm going to pick back up a little bit of that white and I'm going to start to drag around some of that graphite that comes from the regular pencil there. And you can see that it brings this kind of foggy, smoky kind of feel into that. And I'm going to go all the way around and do just that. So I'll come over here, and bring it along the black line. And I would say that I'm using a medium pressure for this. So I'm not pressing overly hard. I'm just giving it a little bit of light dusting. So you can see that I've had a chance to go all the way around, and then I'm going to take that white pencil and I'm going to drag around some of that graphite. So you go ahead and do yours, and really just enjoy the process. This is a really fun technique to do, and I've been using it a lot in my different tangles that I've been playing with lately, and I really like this technique a lot. And I hope that it'll kind of change your relationship with graphite, because it definitely has changed my relationship with graphite. Have fun with this. We're going to start to carry our color from the center and start to move it outward here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to emphasize corners in this piece. So I'm going to zoom in on this corner right over here. You can see that I'm going to focus in here. And what I'm doing is I'm going to take that purple once again, and I'm going to start to bring it into the corner. I'm going to dive into this corner that's down in here. And then I'm going to come up into this corner right in here and start to bring it down. Coming back over to the sides here, I'll dive into this indentation that we have in here. I'll dive down where there's this corner right in here. And I might even come over into this area right over here too. I do that up in here. I'm going to pick up a little bit of that white, and I'm going to start to smear that color around in here. Now when we start to bring the other colors into here, this is really going to come to life. But for right now, all we're doing is focusing on emphasizing the corners here. So you can see how that's starting to look like there's sheen. It's kind of interesting. So I'm going to go around to each of these flowers, and I'm going to do the same thing that I just did right here. You go ahead and do yours. Have fun with it. Play, relax your shoulders, and just let your breath be full and easy. I know that sometimes we have a tendency to hold our breath when we're working, so let yourself relax and enjoy working with color. You can see that I've had a chance to go all the way around in here, and it's already starting to bring a lot of cohesiveness into the piece here. What I love is that when you're working with something that's in the center and you start to bring it outward, it gives a relationship to the whole piece, which is really nice. So we're going to switch things up a little bit here, and we're going to start to work with two colors that I love to see next to purple. And that is, I love to work with the crimson red, which is PC924, and then I also have PC918, which is orange. What I'm looking for is a dark red and an orange. So if you don't have those colors, don't worry about it. Just grab a dark red and an orange and you're good to go. Okay? So what we're going to start to do is we're going to start to do some shading, and I'm going to go right back to that first corner that we started with here. And my shading is going to go like this. I'm going to start by taking a little bit of that crimson red, and I'm going to bring in just a light dusting of it all along the inside here. Once I have that, I'm going to pick up a little bit of that orange, and I'm going to go right over the top of it. And I'm going to start to work my way out. Now you'll notice that that pencil is working in a circular motion. The reason why I like that is because it really gives a nice even distribution of color. Once I've got that the way I want it, I'm going to come back in with a little bit of that red, and I'm going to start to get dramatic. I'll pick back up that orange and I'm going to blur my edges. I'm not pressing hard with that orange. I'm keeping it nice and light. And you can see how pretty that transition is. It's nice and soft. So I'm going to go all the way around the piece and do just that. So when I'm working in these pieces that have these kind of indentations, the red's going to come down from the bottom. Over here, the red is going to come from the side. Down in here, it's going to come from the bottom again. And then once again from the bottom. I'll come in, blur these out a little bit, soften it up. You'll notice that I'm leaving some nice white in there. Really giving this a nice softening, and then I'll come back in with a little bit of that red and bring a little bit of drama. Just like so. And then once again, I will soften it up again with a little bit of that orange. I want this to have a little bit of vibrancy in it. I want it to feel almost like a stained glass window. So I'm going to go around and do that same thing all the way throughout this entire piece. And we're really going to have some fun with it. So take your time, enjoy what you're doing, and then when we come back, we're going to do some wallpaper. Now I just want to clarify something. I'm just turning my tile clockwise here, and I'm going to do that same technique every time I get into that corner. So as you're working through, remember to continue to turn your tile clockwise as you're working through these pieces so that you get that really nice feel. Okay? So here I go. I'm going to start again with a little bit of that red and just work my way through, staying on that right hand side and then starting to dip down all the way through the piece here. Okay? So you get the idea now. Have some fun with this, okay? I've had a chance to go all the way around the piece here, and I'm going to do a little bit more blending. I'm picking up the Prismacolor PC1002. This is the yellowed orange, and I'm going to just zoom in on this corner here and watch what happens when I start to bring a little bit of that yellowed orange in here. I'm going to start where the lightest part is and just do a soft dusting with little circles, and then I'm going to start to work my way back and kind of dip into this, and it brings an electricity that this didn't have before, and I really love the way that these colors all work together in concert. So you can see that I'm just doing little circles and bringing in a little bit of that yellowed orange and using it as a blender rather than using the white. And I really like the way that it looks. And so when I zoom out, you can really see the difference between here and there. So go ahead, pick up a yellow, and have some fun blending it out. Now I'm going to start to work on the inside of these flowers here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a little bit of the orange first and just lay down a little bit of a foundation color. I'm going to do this all the way around, and you'll notice that I'm leaving a little bit of white on the edges of those petals here. Once I have that, I'm going to pick up a little bit of that crimson, And I'm going to start to develop a little bit of that shadow that we're looking for. Once I've got that shadow the way that I want it, I'm going to pick up a little bit of that orange again because I don't want to lose the depth of it. I want it to be really dramatic. And then I'll come in with a little bit of that yellow and start to bring that blending into the whole area in here. So that when I turn it, look at how it brings a little bit of drama in there. Now you may decide that you want to bring a little bit of white into this and blur it out and soften it a little bit inside of the flower. And you may like it throughout the piece as well. I mean, it's really your personal preference. Remember, I'm just taking you for the ride. You're the artist. And I think that that really looks nice and soft. So I'm going to go around to all 4 of these and do the same thing. You go ahead and do yours. Isn't that so fun? I hope you're enjoying this. So I'm going to go into this corner right here and we're going to add some wallpaper into it. So we're going to zoom in. And I have my crimson red in my hand here. This is PC924. And all we're going to do is start to bring in those vertical lines just to make this a little bit more interesting. And for me, whenever I'm doing lines like this, it brings in really beautiful texture into the piece that wouldn't have been there before. And it just, for me, adds that little bit of something that just takes the tangle over the top. So I'm going to go through here and just add those lines, and it really gives it that little piece of interest. So when I zoom out, look at the difference between here and there. So I'm going to go all the way through and do those vertical lines. You go ahead and do yours. Enjoy. Remember not to push too hard on your pencil. You saw my lead break a minute ago. Keep it nice and light and make sure that your pencil is really well sharpened up. So I'm going to take a little bit of that orange that we've been working with here, and you can see that it's really well sharpened up. We're going to start to bring it in around the cat here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the pencil and lay it down on its side, and I'm going to do little circles, creating that really beautiful orange background that we have here. And you can see that I'm just laying that color down nice and light to make it interesting. And just working it around the cat here, up and around the tail, and above his head here. I'm going to take a little bit of that crimson red that we have, and I'm going to start to run it all along the edges of our frame here. So you're going to see me turn and bring that in, turning the tile to make it work for your hands here, turning the tile again, and then I'm going to go ahead and press just a little bit harder right along the black line here. So you can see that I'm going to start to get that really nice glowy kind of feel with the pencils. And then I'm going to pick up a little bit more of that orange and just blur out the edges in the corner. And right over here as well. And then finally, I'm going to pick up a little bit of the yellowed orange here. This is PC1002. And I'm going to just lay it down on its side and start to blur everything out, just getting a really nice warmth in here. So you can see I'm just working this and bringing that in, getting a really beautiful warmth. And then finally, I'll pick up a little bit of the white, and you want to make sure that it's clean. And starting from the yellow first, you always want to start from the lightest color first when you're doing this kind of shading, and start to work your way back into those darker colors. And I just love how that warmth really gets a good glow. So I'm just working my way around and getting a beautiful glow around that cat. Just love the way that feels. So go ahead and work with yours. I'm going to work on mine for a little bit, and then when we come back, we're going to start to add in a contrast color into the piece. So we are going to add in a little bit of the lime peel green. This is PC1005. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to work inside of the heads of our flowers here. I'm going to start by just adding a little bit of a dusting into the head of the flower here. And you'll notice that I'm going to leave a little light source on the left-hand side. Once I've got that lime peel green in there, I'm going to pick up just a little bit of graphite, and I'm going to dust the edges with a little bit of graphite in here. Now I'm going to pick up my tortillon. This is my blending stump, but you could use a little Q-tip if you wanted to. And I'm going to blur it out just a little bit. And then I'm going to come back in again, and I'm going to add a little bit of a heavier line in there. And to set this, I'm going to come back in with a little bit of my lime peel green so that graphite doesn't move. And I love the drama that that brings to the head of that flower. Isn't that so pretty? So that when I zoom out, you can really see it's going to pop. So I'm going to do that in all 4 of these, and then when we come back, we're going to add the green into the center as well. So let's bring a little bit of that lime peel green into the center just to get the cohesiveness that we're looking for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start by adding a dusting of that lime peel green right in here and right in here. And this is going to just make this feel like the exterior is meeting the interior. So I'm just dropping in and dusting it in on both sides, leaving a little bit of light at the center. Turning the tile, making it work for your hands here. Now once you've got that lime peel green in there, we're going to take that same graphite combination and start to bring it into the edges of the piece here. So I'm going to pick up some of my graphite here and start to just dust the corners with a little bit of that graphite. And then once I've got those corners in there the way that I want them, I'm going to pick up that tortillon again and start to blur it into the green. And then I'll come in and I'll add just a little bit of heavier edging here. And I'll blur that out. And then I'm going to take that green and I'm going to set it. So I'm just giving this a little bit of drama And look at how beautiful that is. And look in the areas where I don't have it and then the areas where it is. Isn't that beautiful? So you go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then when we come back, we're going to do some finishing touches. So I'm going to pick up my black pen just for a minute, and I'm going to focus in on this particular piece right in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to bring in a little bit of black to this area in here, just to give this a little bit of pop. And you can see that I'm kind of keeping a jagged line up towards the top so that we can get this kind of sheen of light. And this is a really nice nod back into where the cat is in here. Isn't that so pretty? So I'm going to go all the way around with the black and do the heads of the daisies just like that. So let's bring some whiskers into the piece here. I'm just going to come back in and create these little soft flicks with my pencil for his whiskers. And you can see why I waited until the end for this, because I really wanted those to pop. And then I'm also going to add some dots going around the tail in here. And then if you are so inclined, you may want to make a little spider that's coming down to sit next to our friend here. And all I'm doing is doing one little circle and one big circle. And then I will add some little lines that make it look as though we have a little spider sitting next to us, which is really, really fun. So if you want to add a little spider in there, go ahead and do so. And then when we come back, we're going to do just a little bit of gray and just a little bit of white. So if you wanted to add a little bit of interest in around your cat here, I'm going to be adding in just a little bit of foliage right around this cat, and you're going to see me come in and make these little teardrop shapes with my white pen. I'm working with the Mizu Love, but you could work with the Sakura if you want to do the Sakura 10 or the Sakura 8. And all I'm doing is just a little line with a teardrop shape coming off of the line. And remember, with these pens, you want to go nice and light. It's very easy to press really hard on these, and they will fight you if you do that. So any place where that background is poking through, you'll want to clean that up. And I'm just going to come around and add another one right over here. Make a little teardrop up at the top. And just go nice and light with that pen. Now some people like to use the Posca pens. You're welcome to use those. Those are paint pens, and you want to be really, really careful where you put your hands with these because you don't want to smudge or smear. But you can see that that adds just a little bit to this. I'm going to bring in a little bit of a highlight on the corner here just by doing a little boomerang shape. Might add a couple of dots just to make it a little interesting there. And so I'm also going to come up right where I've got my flowers and just add a little bit of a light in these as well, just to make them pop and keep them interesting. So go ahead, play, have fun with these, and then when we come back, we're going to add just a little bit of gray, and that's it. We have really come a long way. So just to add a little bit more interest to the piece, you're going to see me do a little bit of gray in my corners of the frame in here. Not a lot, just a little bit. We don't want to overpower what we've got in here. I'll pick up my tortillon and I'll just give it a little blend out here. Coming up over into this corner as well. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the outside edge. So just a little bit of gray in these corners over here. And I'll just do these two for you. And then you'll just bring that tortillon into it and really blend those out. I find that working in little circles makes it a little bit more interesting, gets a little bit more organicness into the frame here. And then you can also come in and add just a little bit of a deepening to it as well. And you can see that I'm kind of dragging that color up the frame a little bit. Notice how I'm leaving the center nice and white. So go ahead and do your frames, and then when we come back, we're going to do one last finishing touch. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put my chop on this. I'm feeling like I've completed here. And I'm actually going to do my chop and wallpaper. So I've got my crimson in my hand here, and I'm just going to bring my little R into this corner right here. And that's kind of my way of saying that I feel finished, that I've completed the piece. I'm going to go ahead and bring my original one in here. And you can see that I've done these two just a little bit differently every time I come in and try something new with it. And so I reversed my colors on this one, and I had done the purple around the center of the flower, and this time I chose the black. I'm always trying to experiment and enjoy doing different things with this. So I hope you enjoyed the class. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Even better, hit the subscribe button, and that way you'll be informed every time I add a new class to the page. I'd love to see your work over on Facebook at our Tangled Yogi Art Community page. We've got a great community over there, super supportive, and I'd love to see you guys over there and sharing your work. Please leave a comment below letting me know how you like the class. Let me know which tangle you like the best, and I look forward to tangling with you soon. All right, that's it for me. I'm Rami Marks. Bye for now.